Welcome back to Accreditation Unlocked. I'm your host, Dr. Ken Clough, and today we're diving into a topic that lies at the very heart of lasting institutional success: the leadership blueprint for continuous improvement. Now, if you've been following along with Season 2, you know that we've been focusing on the theme of leadership, not just in title or position, but in practice, in culture, and in the way we move our institutions forward. We've talked about the leadership skills that drive accreditation success and the importance of faculty engagement and leading improvement. But today, we're going one level deeper. This episode is about how leaders can create structures and systems, not just ideals, that embed improvement into everything the institution does. From your meeting agendas, to your budget requests, to the very conversations happening in the hallways, this is about how you, as a leader, can make continuous improvement part of your institution's DNA. Because at the end of the day, accreditation isn't only about compliance. It's about cultivating a mindset of learning and growth for students, yes, but also for institutions themselves. So, let's get into it. Let's unpack what it means to lead continuous improvement and how to design a blueprint that makes it sustainable. The leadership mindset of continuous improvement. If you've ever been through an accreditation review, you know that continuous improvement isn't a new phrase. Every set of standards mentions it. Every evaluator looks for evidence of it. But the challenge isn't knowing what continuous improvement is. It's knowing how to make it real. So what is continuous improvement, really? At its core, it's an ongoing process of evaluating how well we're doing, making data-informed decisions, implementing changes, and assessing the impact of those changes, and then doing it again. It's a loop. It's a rhythm of reflection and refinement. But here's where leadership comes in. Continuous improvement doesn't happen on its own. It requires leaders to design the conditions that make it possible and to model the behaviors that make it normal. The leadership mindset behind continuous improvement is grounded in curiosity, humility, and follow-through. It's about asking questions like, what are we learning from our data? How are we acting on what we learn? And what structures ensure that those actions are sustained over time? In my years as a chief academic officer, I found that leadership tone sets the temperature for the entire institution. If leaders treat data and improvement as a compliance task, others will too. But if leaders treat improvement as a conversation about excellence, a way to strengthen mission, student success, and institutional integrity, that message spreads. Leaders who sustain improvement share a few traits. They're curious, always asking what can be done better. They're strategically patient, understanding that true improvement takes time and iteration. And they're reflective, modeling the same openness to feedback that they expect from others. This is where continuous improvement intersects with leadership theory, particularly adaptive leadership. Adaptive leaders don't just respond to challenges. They create environments where their teams can learn, test, and adapt continuously. They see improvement as an evolving dialogue, not a destination. So, before we talk about structures or systems, the first step in the blueprint is mindset. Because every improvement loop starts with a leader willing to ask, what can we learn from this, and how do we make it better? Building the blueprint. Improvement loops and meetings. Let's move from mindset to method. And where better to start than meetings? If you think about it, meetings are the most common leadership tool we have. They're where decisions are made, where priorities are set, and where culture is shaped. But too often, meetings become about updates, not improvement. We run through reports, share information, and then move on to the next agenda item. The loop never closes. And that's where the opportunity lies. Embedding improvement loops into meetings doesn't require more time. It requires better use of the time we already have. Here are a few practical ways to make that happen. Number 1. Add a standing improvement update to every recurring meeting. Whether it's a division meeting, a cabinet meeting, or a faculty assembly, carve out 5 minutes for follow-up from prior actions. What have we learned since the last meeting? Did the change we made have the desired impact? What still needs attention? This keeps improvement visible, alive, and documented. Number 2, build learning moments into your agenda. Instead of just reviewing numbers or outcomes, ask, what story does this data tell us? A 5-minute discussion about trends in retention, licensure, or course evaluations can turn static data into dynamic insight. Number 3, end with reflection, not just next steps. Try asking, what did we learn from today's conversation that can improve our process? That small question reinforces that improvement is everyone's responsibility and not just the job of an accreditation committee. I've seen this work firsthand. At one institution, we introduced a data point of the month at every department chair meeting. Every department chair shared a single metric, something that showed student success, faculty engagement, or resource efficiency, and explained what they were doing to improve it. Within months, improvement conversations became routine, not reactive. The secret isn't in formality, it's in the habit. When leaders use meetings to review, reflect, and refine, improvement stops being a side project and becomes part of the institutional conversation. So if you're drawing your leadership blueprint, one of the first design elements should be this: build improvement into your meeting structure. Integrating continuous improvement into budgets and resource allocation. Now let's turn to a more sensitive but critical part of the blueprint, the budget. Nothing signals institutional priorities more clearly than where the money goes. If continuous improvement isn't connected to your budget, it's not really part of your strategy. Leaders can embed improvement into budgeting by linking funding decisions to documented evidence of need and impact. Here's how. Number 1, require departments to connect resource requests to improvement data. When a program requests new equipment or a staffing increase, ask, what assessment results support this request? What improvement plan does it align with? This ensures resource allocation is strategic, not political. Number 2, create an improvement investment fund. Set aside a small percentage of the institutional budget each year to support innovative projects that address identified improvement areas. This encourages creativity and reinforces that improvement is a shared responsibility. Number 3, use budgeting as a communication tool. When leaders publicly tie budget decisions to improvement outcomes, for example, investing in tutoring because retention data showed impact, it builds transparency and trust across the institution. Here's a quick example. At one institution I worked with, a nursing program used assessment data showing that simulation-based learning improved NCLEX outcomes. The dean built a funding request around that data, connecting it directly to student learning improvement. Not only did the request get approved, it became a showcase example in their accreditation report. Evidence that data drives decision-making. That's the key. Closing the resource loop. Budgets can either reinforce improvement or stall it. When leaders deliberately connect dollars to data, they reinforce that continuous improvement is not just rhetoric. It's how the institution operates. Creating a culture of continuous improvement. Now, let's talk about the part that really sustains the blueprint, Culture. Because you can have all the processes and templates in the world, but if your institutional culture doesn't value improvement, the effort will fade as soon as leadership changes or accreditation pressures ease. So how do leaders cultivate a culture where continuous improvement thrives? It starts with a shared language. Everyone needs to understand what terms like closing the loop, assessment, and improvement plan actually mean in your context. Create clarity. Define these terms early and reinforce them often. Next, leaders must create psychological safety. Improvement requires honesty, and honesty requires trust. Faculty and staff need to feel safe saying, "This didn't work," or "We need help in this area," without the fear of blame or punishment. That's the only way real progress happens. Third, leaders must celebrate wins, even small ones. When a department improves an outcome or refines a process, share it broadly. Hold improvement showcases or feature "You said, we did" stories in newsletters and town halls. Recognition reinforces behavior. And finally, embed improvement into evaluation and accountability systems. Include continuous improvement goals in annual reviews. When leaders are evaluated not just on results, but on how they foster learning and adaptation, the culture starts to shift. One of my favorite examples comes from an institution that hosted an annual learning and improvement fair. Departments created simple posters highlighting one change they made during the year, what data informed it, and what impact it had. The event wasn't about compliance. It was about storytelling. It transformed how people saw improvement, not as a report, but as a reflection of their collective success. As leaders, you set the tone. When you ask the right questions, celebrate the right actions, and reward the right behaviors, improvement becomes part of how people think, not just something they do. The blueprint in action. Pulling it all together. Let's pull the threads together and look at what this leadership blueprint really looks like in action. If you've been following along, you've probably noticed that this isn't about adding more work. It's about integrating improvement into the work you're already doing, in meetings, in budgets, and in culture. You can think of it as a blueprint cycle with 5 interconnected steps. Number 1, identify. Recognize an opportunity for improvement using data or stakeholder feedback. Number 2, plan. Design an action plan that aligns with institutional goals. Number 3, act. Implement the change, allocate resources, and communicate the plan. Number 4, assess. Measure the outcomes of that action. Did it make a difference? Number 5, communicate and celebrate. Share the story, recognize contributors, and re-engage stakeholders. This is your continuous improvement loop. The cycle that never ends but evolves over time. When you design leadership systems around this cycle, you make improvement visible and repeatable. You transform it from a project into a practice. Here's a practical example. At one college, the cabinet team began using a simple improvement tracker in their shared drive. Each major initiative included columns for data used, action taken, impact observed, and next steps. Every quarter, they reviewed it during leadership meetings. Over time, this living document became not only a management tool, but also direct evidence for accreditation reporting. That's the power of embedding improvement. It serves both leadership accountability and accreditation documentation at once. You're not scrambling to find examples later. You're living them daily. The reflective leader's role. As we near the close of this episode, I want to bring it back to something deeply personal: the leader's own reflection. Leadership for continuous improvement isn't just about managing systems. It's about managing self. It requires leaders to model curiosity, humility, and adaptability. Ask yourself, am I modeling the behaviors I want to see in others? Do I follow through when someone raises a valid concern or improvement idea? Do I share back what was done so people know their input mattered? One of the simplest but most effective tools I've seen is the "You Said, We Did" report. It's a one-page summary that connects feedback to action. You said advising hours were limited. We expanded them. You said technology support was delayed. We restructured ticketing. That kind of transparency builds trust, and trust fuels engagement. As leaders, we are the stewards of the improvement loop. If we close that loop consistently, by reflecting, responding, and recognizing, we make improvement real. We move from talk to transformation. So as we wrap up, let's bring it all together. Continuous improvement is not a department. It is not a committee. It is a discipline of leadership, one that shows up in every conversation, every decision, and every budget line. Your leadership blueprint for continuous improvement has 3 core pillars. Number 1, meetings, where improvement becomes the language of collaboration. Number 2, budgets, where priorities are aligned with evidence and impact. Number 3, culture, where improvement becomes identity, not obligation. When these elements work together, improvements become sustainable, and accreditation becomes a reflection of your daily practice, not a periodic event. So here's my challenge for you this week. Look at your calendar, your agenda, and your budget, and ask yourself, where can I embed an improvement loop? Because every improvement, no matter how small, starts with a leader willing to build the blueprint. I'm Dr. Ken Clough, and this has been Accreditation Unlocked. If you found today's episode helpful, subscribe, share it with your colleagues, and check out our resources at the Accreditation Collaborative, where leadership meets continuous improvement. Thanks for listening, and remember, improvement doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design.